Hey, listen up. Yeah, we here and we locked in. Let's keep it going all the way to the top 10. We fear the turtle, so it's no other option. Fred and Ryan, just watch them. Let's take it to the max. It's the shell and tell. They come with all the facts. It's the shell and tell. Let's take it to the max. It's the shell and tell. They come with all the facts. It's the shell and tell.
All right, fellas, it's time for some shell and tell.
And you need to make a phone call, my friend.
I've already got him on the line, man.
Look at you moving.
This is a special episode of the Shell and Tell Birdland style, as we've got Mr. Inside Black and Gold, Mr. Ahmed Gafir himself. Ahmed, welcome to the show.
Fellas, what's going on?
Not a whole lot, man. How are you? You fully recovered from the New York trip?
Yeah, it was definitely a long trip, but well worth it. I mean, it was definitely a good time, and the game went just as we expected. So
yeah.
Definitely good experience.
Well, hopefully your pockets got a little deeper, because Ryan's and I's did. We put a couple $100 down on the Terps winning over Virginia Tech in the Pinstripe Bowl. They ended up winning 54-10. The spread was what, Ryan? 3.5.
3.5.
I mean, all day long you take that.
And somehow we were nervous enough for Ahmed, anything we need to know? I'm putting money down. We did not need to worry with that giant ass kicking we handed them.
No, not at all. I definitely expected Maryland to win, but I did not expect it. Maybe in a 44-point fashion.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, 14 was about what I was expecting, honestly, even after we knew everything. But 44 was a welcome sight.
To that point, man, most points scored by a Power 5 team in any of this year's bowl games. Ohio State was a close second with 48. Just again, I fully expected Maryland to win this game. I fully expected them to win by a touchdown or more, but to win by 44 was unreal. And I got to say, this wasn't just an offensive game. It wasn't just a defensive game. You know me, I went into this game and I said prior to the game.
I laughed at him.
He did. He laughed at me, Ahmed. I said, the difference maker in this game has got to be special teams. It's got to be an impact in the positive way for the Terps. And man, was it ever. And it started early in this game.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think that's kind of the perfect ending for this team, because, for not only did special teams, play well, but for special teams to open the game scoring, to get things started, to get Maryland in control of this game. I think that was really big. But like you said, it was just really in all three phases. Obviously, like we've mentioned, Virginia Tech's depth was pretty limited in that game. But
right.
Just for Maryland to go in and take care of business as they expected, as was needed, definitely just a perfect ending to Loxley's third year.
Right. It started early with that Tahib Still return for a 92-yard punt touchdown, something that we hadn't seen an explosive play, again, from special teams at all. And to happen so early in this game was great. You knew things were going to go good. If it started early like that with special teams, Ryan, you knew things were going good. Got you pumped up, got your dad pumped up. We were ready for it.
Fred's over there going, I fucking told you. And then every time special teams would do something well, he would count it. He'd be like, that's 3, Ryan. That's 4, Ryan. And I'm like, and then I can't remember what they did. They messed up. I'm like, that's 1, Fred.
Literally, I wasn't asking for anything miraculous. All I was asking for was the special teams.
Don't mess it up.
Don't mess it up. Play a clean game. So every time they made a clean play, I counted that as a point.
I texted the two of you the second that return went back and said, they looked at the two of you and said, screw you, Shell and Tell.
But man, the offense, it took them a few drives, I think, to kind of get a little comfortable.
Yeah, it must have been some nerves there. It took to get a couple conditions there where they just turned the 3 and outs, right?
Right. But once they got rolling, though, man, it didn't stop. It was 6 straight possessions, including 4 touchdowns and 2 field goals. And to Loxley's point, and I wanted to get your comment on this, Ahmed, I was kind of surprised. I thought that this game was super important. We talked about just how important getting to a bowl game was. Like, that was priority number 1. But I thought the winning this game, again, especially against a team that's in the DMV area that recruits heavily against us, right? Winning this game meant a lot to this program moving forward. But prior to the game, Loxley had said, like, listen, it's going to be on senior leadership to get get us there. But you're also going to see a lot of younger guys, a lot of guys that hadn't had a whole lot of opportunities get chances in this game, which to me, being a pessimist a little bit at the time, I thought, shit, we're going to get some of these younger guys out there who are vulnerable to maybe making mistakes and, the game being a little too big for them. But let me tell you, everybody, young, old, didn't matter. Everybody played good in this game and had a major role.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. I thought it was just, especially when you look at the running back room. I mean, you see Roman Hemby and Antoine Littleton picking up their first career touchdown.
Right.
Daryl Jones, which I don't even think I realized had not scored a touchdown in his 4 years going into that bowl game. But for a guy like him, obviously he's a veteran. But you saw Weston Wolf, C.J. Dupree was getting a lot more action as well. And then on the defensive side of the ball, he obviously had a guy like Chop, but to have a guy like Dante Trader playing a good amount, Bo Braid, so like you said, I agree. And I think the fact that they won this game, that they're able to secure their first winning season since 2014, their first bowl win since 2010. And I just think the total package of this season, the way it ended, and to get that win in that year 3, like we mentioned, this is really big because they needed that to be able to show that the plan that Loxley had in place is coming to fruition.
Yeah, you mentioned Daryl Jones here, man. We can't go without talking about him being the offensive player of the game here for Shell and Tell. Absolutely dominant. 4 receptions, 111 yards with 2 touchdowns. At first, when you mentioned the giant 70-yard touchdown, and then followed it up with it was a 3rd and long that we were like, oh, not this again. Well, that 3rd and long went from converted to touchdown in a hurry as they left him open on that left flat there. So it was really a hell of a game to break out. Unfortunately, he has entered the transfer portal. That will be his last game as a Terp. Possibly catches on with another team, but it's really good to see him go out on a high note.
Yeah, just really happy. And then a guy like Brian Cobbs, obviously, he's another that entered the transfer portal, but had a really impressive one-handed catch on the left-hand sideline. So, like you said, it's just a really, really great ending especially for a senior class that's been through hell and back during their tenure.
Right. Now, you mentioned the senior class. Tayon Fleet Davis has been the bell cow for this backfield pretty much all year. He had a good game in this game, 8 rushes, 57 yards, didn't have a ton of opportunity, but he maximized the opportunities that he got. But you mentioned it, man, these freshman rookies, these freshman running back that came out in this game, Antoine Littleton, like you said, 7 rushes, 45 yards, a touchdown. Roman Hemby, Middle River's finest, 5 rushes, 26 yards, and a touchdown. Colby McDonald, who we saw get some work late on in the year, 4 rushes, 36 yards, 1 touchdown. This gives me a lot of hope for this running back core and what it looks like for the future, because there were a lot of question marks as to what this was going to be. We saw Isaiah Jacobs leave and enter the transfer portal. We saw the other big guy, Penny Boone. Yeah, Antoine Littleton in this game, to me, was everything that Penny Boone should be. He was that big back, the guy that's going to take 2 or 3 guys to bring him down. He is a load coming through the middle at like 280 pounds.
Yeah, 45 yards is a surprise to me. I thought he would have had more than that. He seemed to be all over the field. It was so exciting cheering for Antoine Littleton.
The thing with this, he'd get hit at the 2, after a 2-yard gain, but then he'd drag him for another 5 or 6 yards easily every time.
It was like 8-yard gain every time he touched the ball.
Yeah. Antoine also, he's a guy who did a really good job of just trimming down his body and getting in shape kind of leading into the season, and then obviously through the season to kind of prepare himself for an opportunity like this. But like you said, just for these younger guys, going into next year, like you said, Colby McDonald, maybe you could make the argument is the most certain guy of the group, but to know that those 3 are coming back with Fallon obviously leading the way, and then adding a guy like 4-star Ramon Brown, but like you said, just this freshman trio definitely looked really good, and Littleton, just for a guy like that, looks super light on his feet, and just be able to pick up those yards after contact. That's exactly what Maryland needs.
Absolutely. And then we had some concerns with Talia, sometimes, like we've said multiple times, when the spotlight gets big, he tends to, kind of get a little nervous, and he plays a little fast, and sometimes he makes his mistakes. So I wasn't sure how he was going to look in this game. This is his first bowl game as a starting quarterback. Again, the importance surrounding this game. But I tell you, he had a hell of a game in this game. He's 20 of 24, 265 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He also had 4 carries for 42 yards. He ended up being the bowl game MVP. What did you see from Leah, and what do you like moving forward with him?
Yeah, I mean, he just looks so confident, and I think just kind of the biggest thing is, I'll always go back to that Iowa game is kind of afterwards, I made a point to say, he needs to prove that game is an outlier rather than the new trend. And I think, obviously, I think Ohio State, he had, some struggles, and Michigan, he had some struggles, but I do think that Talia did prove that Iowa game was an outlier in his season performance when you look at the total picture now. Like you said, 20 of 24, 255 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just looks super confident in that post route that he hit to Raheem Jarrett.
Yeah.
Just the connection that they have. I mean, you can tell that he has really good chemistry with his receiver. So no doubt in my mind that he'll remain confident, and he'll put in the offseason work to get his guys and the chemistry down going into the next year's wide receiver room. But I think you can continue to see just the steps that he's taking, and now he holds the single season record in completion, passing yards, and he tied Scott Milanovic for the single season touchdown record. So
unreal.
I mean, just where that's overlooking the fact that we had a quarterback that started every single game in one season. So I think Talia has filled a much needed void in College Park.
There's a certain somebody to my left here that wanted to sit Lee after his first start a couple years ago.
He has evolved. I'll give him that. Those first few, it wasn't pretty. Nobody can deny that.
Those interceptions were jump balls. Those were not bad throws.
They were bad throws.
It is what it is. He has had some bad games over the years. He did blow up after in that Iowa game. That was the worst.
He
quarter.
lost his boy.
That was the worst quarter I've ever seen anyone play. But he has been very good throughout the whole year. I do think, like Fred said, that Demas injury, he was so far in his head thinking about that and forgetting about the football game, which in that moment it did feel bigger than football. Like we were mourning Demas's NFL career.
Literally mourning it in the middle of the game. Mind you, it's Friday Night Lights. They need to get rid of that shit at Terps at Maryland Stadium.
Maryland's like the reason it came to the Big Ten. We're like, yeah, we'll play whatever you guys want us to. Put us on primetime.
Not Friday Night Nights. Not for us. All right, let's switch over to the defensive side of the ball. A couple of guys that have been our guys, ever since they got here. Nick Cross. You can't not talk about him in this game. Was an absolute force when he was on the field, because there were a lot of times Ryan's like, what the fuck's going on with Nick Cross? He's not on the field. They got Bo Braid out there.
That was the one player that Locks was sitting a little too much for my liking. And I'm like, that is your last resort. What are we doing? Now, this was, mind you, first half when it was still a game.
Right.
By the end of that third quarter, I didn't care where Cross was at. He could be wherever he wanted to be. But in that second quarter, I'm sitting there going, why in the world? And I didn't know that. I thought of that 70-yard bomb they connected on. He wasn't on the field. Ended up, they just were playing him in the box that possession. I was like, that's a strange place for him to be in that moment.
Right.
But so he was definitely the only person I was calling for constantly.
Yeah, I think for me, the good thing was we got to see a chance of the future. Bill Braid is going to be the safety of the future once Nick Cross moves on, whenever what it'll be. We'll talk about that here in a little bit.
Hopefully.
We'll talk about it. But man, on the field, like I said, in the opportunities that he obviously had the huge hit for a sack that led to the fumble and recovery by Greg Rose for a touchdown. What's your take on Nick Cross, not just in this game, man, but as his overall prospect for the NFL? Do you think this guy is going to end up leaving, or do you think he stays?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's kind of proven a lot, and like you said, been able to play in the box a little bit and kind of pretty much paid dividends on that sack that ended up leading to a fumble, the Greg Rose touchdown. I definitely think that there's I would say more realistic chance that he stays. Maybe that window opens up a little bit. I think the ultimate decision ends up being NFL. But we'll see. I'd say definitely him and Jacorian Bennett are the two biggest names right now up in the air.
Right.
But Nick Cross, like you said, I mean, I think a guy like him, if he leaves, he will measure. He'll test out very well at the combine and likely improve his stock even more. But so I do think that side, that aspect of the potential for him to jump on board is known from Nick's side. So I do think that there is a realistic chance that we've seen the last of him as a Maryland Terrapin. But like you said, if that's his last game, then he definitely left it all out there. Only finished with 3 tackles, but just a guy that he's made strides, and the athleticism was always there through his 3 years. But just the IQ and even off the field as a leader for this locker room has definitely been a vital piece on the defensive side.
Yeah, that play was amazing, man. If you follow us on @ShellandTellPod, you already know this, but we do play of the game every week. We do offense and defensive player. I couldn't decide on the play of the game this week. They were both too good, so I gave it to both Tareem Still's punt return and Nick Cross's strip sack fumble with Greg Rose containing for the touchdown.
I approve on that one.
I said, why not? Why decide appetizer and dessert? The game's so sweet. So I think that they both were very deserving. They were both unbelievable plays. I had already turned to Fred, I think it was the middle of the third quarter, and said, all we need now is a defensive score. So when that was the final score of the game, we celebrated like no other. Even though the game was completely in hand and it was over, it felt like the complete package, like we had seen the Maryland masterpiece put in front of us.
Absolutely. And another guy that we can't go without mentioning, guy that you've been very high on since before he was ever even a Terp. Obviously, Ruben Hippolyte had a huge impact. Another guy that has shown strides and growth. One of the things that I was a little critical on Ruben is you see the tackle production drop from when Chance Campbell was here to Ruben as his replacement. You weren't seeing those double-digit tackles week in and week out.
Watch that Ole Miss game. Chance had the very first tackle of the game, and my whole heart was like, man, I miss Chance. Yeah. I love Ruben. He's going to be great, and he was the defensive player of the game with 12 tackles this time. Only 4 solo, but man, he was all over the field. Sideline to sideline, complete rocket ship, which is what we said he had. He had the speed. Even when we back in the day, we talked to Ellis. He said the kid's got all the athletic skill in the world. He just needs to get the head right, know where he's running before he runs there, instead of just taking off. And he's getting to that point. I think that those weeks of practice really helped.
What's your take on Ruben, Abin?
Yeah, I mean, like you guys said, I agree, and I think kind of with him moving to that full-time starter role this year, and just with the will linebacker spot, kind of going through some injury depth concerns through the season. I think Ruben definitely had to shoulder a little bit more of the load, and for him to kind of come out, like you said, he was all over the field. I did think it was pretty interesting that he didn't end up starting. I believe it was TJ Kautai that ended up drawing that first snap, but ever since that second series, Hippolyte played a lot, pretty much, I think, consistently throughout every series. But again, just a guy that next year, he's going to be that captain of the defense, kind of that leader on and off the field. So he's been a guy that's been as advertised with his work ethic. And I think where Maryland fans are starting to see the production side of it a little bit more. And I think next year, he'll have a chance to declare after next year. And I think that's kind of in the back of his mind. So with a chance to put the bow on a strong season, I think he'll definitely continue to take strides going into spring and then fall.
I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see his growth. It's like you said, it's improved not just year over year that he's been here, but week after week, game after game. He's looked more complete player. The game's kind of slowing down for him. So I'm excited for next year. I know for sure we're at least getting one more year out of Ruben, so that excites me. But we got to talk about it, man. We've mentioned a few of these names. The next phase for the Terps is basically roster overhaul. You got transfer portal departures and arrivals. You got the guys that are deciding whether or not they're going to take their NFL chances or whatnot. Couple of guys for the NFL that have already made their decisions. We know tight end Chigakonkwo, he is going to be going to the NFL. One of our favorites, one of my favorites, Sam O announced earlier yesterday, the former JUCO to Maryland to now NFL prospect. Third team All Big Ten this season, 55 tackles, 8.5 for loss, 6 sacks. Sam O was a difference maker on this defensive line, an underrated guy that not a whole lot of people talked about. To grow from where he was to NFL prospect is huge for this guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely big. And, Sam O, he was one of 2 players, him and Townsley Davis, that exhausted their eligibility. But when you look at Sam O and just the prospect that he was coming into Maryland versus the prospect that he leaving Maryland, definitely a picture-perfect development plan for the Maryland staff to be able to pitch to other potential impact guys, and then to have Sam O just completely elevate his draft stock to where he most likely a day 3 selection now, possibly day 2. Maryland was able to play him a lot more in space against Virginia Tech in that bowl win. So definitely a guy that he was a big piece, was probably the biggest piece along that defensive line all season. And then you look at a guy like Chig at the tight end position. We forget that Maryland pretty much avoided the tight end under Walt Bell, the DJ Durkin era. So to have that tight end back, the receiving threat, and especially for a guy like Chig who shouldered the load and ended up being a really vital piece in the passing attack once Deshaun Jones and Dante Demas went down. Definitely big. And it's a win for Maryland because at the end of the day, you want those players to go to the NFL, do well. You want more players in the league. So Maryland has some pieces to replace both of them, but both of them more than deserving to continue on with their football careers.
That's really great news. I heard you saying the day 3 to possibly day 2, because in my head it was day 3 to possibly UDFA. I knew that he would get on a team somewhere, but that's more the way I was leaning. So you really think it's more of the day 2, day 3 scenario?
I would say definitely, like, day 3 is definitely a safe bet, but I mean, I think he's a guy that could impress a little bit more, maybe solidify his draft stock, if not move up a little bit more once he tests and things like that.
That's great.
He does move pretty well, so I think that'll be something to watch. But I definitely think, kind of coming into this year, didn't know if he would be drafted, but I do think that he has a very, very good chance of getting drafted now.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty part about him is that you can line him up anywhere on the defensive line. You can line him up at 0 technique all the way out to 9 technique if you need to. He's a very versatile defensive lineman, and I think a lot of NFL draft scouts will see that at the combine.
I think another thing that you got to look at from the perspective, if you're trying to look at a guy that is not necessarily not a full project like an undrafted free agent might be, but a guy that might be a little bit of a project just getting him to the NFL level. This guy's coachable. He went from being a JUCO athlete to being in the Big Ten and performing at a high level in the Big Ten. So I think it just goes to show you that this kid's coachable, and you're going to have some NFL teams that are going to look at that. And to that point, especially with this draft not being very quarterback heavy, they're going to be looking at some of these defensive players that maybe could have some disruption on some of these mobile quarterbacks, and this guy might be one of those guys.
Absolutely. It's a great point. All right, so we got to look at the guys that are sadly leaving, but, we always knew that this was a possibility with a lot of these guys, and this is just part of the prospects. When you have better talent coming in, you got limitations on scholarships. It's just part of the process. One of the names, we'll start at the quarterback position. One of the names we weren't sure how it was going to shake out, Reese Udinsky. He had
super expected, super hurtful.
Yeah, it is. It's hurtful to not have that insurance policy behind Leah, but he's only got 1 year of eligibility left, so he wants to go out there and play. He wants to be an impact player, which he can be. I mean, Ahmed, you've talked about Reese in previous episodes that we've done and the talent that he's shown on the practice field, but this is a guy that's going to go to Richmond and I think do big things there.
Yeah, he'll reunite with former VMI offensive coordinator Billy Kosh, where obviously Udinsky played with Kosh at VMI before enrolling at Maryland. So I definitely think he'll be able to go in, proclaim that starting job. And, he was a guy that came into Maryland with an NFL draft grade. So I think he's the guy that will be able to, emphasize that once more and remind NFL scouts what he's capable of doing. Like you said, he wants to play in that last year, so completely understandable with Leah coming back.
Absolutely. Now, we know with all the signing day names that we mentioned with wide receivers coming in, we had a bunch of names coming in and a lot of guys that I was thinking, how the hell are these guys going to ever see the field with all the wide receivers that we potentially could have come back? Well, we got our answer as we ended up losing 4 wide receivers to the transfer portal. We'll start with the senior guys. Wide receiver Carlos Carrier, Brian Cobbs, Daryl Jones, all gone. Those were guys I think that were expected. Again, same situation. They're not going to see a whole lot of playing time here, want to get playing time as much as they can in their last year of eligibility and going elsewhere.
They all gave us one exciting game to just wonder what if. If this would have been, without the Carlos Carrier game versus Indiana, without the Daryl Jones in the bowl game, we'd just been like, okay, have a good day, see you guys later. But now there's just enough to give you that, oh man, it kind of hurts a little bit, but we have plenty of talent.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like you said, all 3 of those guys, they were seniors, so they had that extra year to be able to play elsewhere. And I think if you look at, Carlos Carrier and Brian Cobbs, you could definitely mention that, those are probably the 2 that would have been most likely to return, with Cobbs, just given how impactful he is in the locker room. I would say maybe more likely, but like you said, just all of them could potentially go elsewhere, maybe to a Group of 5 school, and secure a starting spot with Dante Demas, Deshaun Jones, Jacob Copeland coming back, Marcus Fleming, and then obviously some of the younger guys. It's understandable to see some of these older guys look elsewhere.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the way the recruiting game works. When you get some of these big, young, talented guys, you got to promise them playing time. And unfortunately, there's only so many starting wide receiver spots. So unfortunately, you got to cut the bait somewhere. And these are guys that are going to get better opportunities and more catches at another program.
Yeah, well, you mentioned young. We did have an underclassman enter the transfer portal. We do have Nick DeGennaro. This one's more, it's hurtful for us just because we just had so much hope. He didn't get to show anything. He had the injury most of this year. But we just really saw just like this grit and like toughness and just kind of wanted to see what this guy could do. Never really was given a chance. Nick DeGennaro enters the transfer portal. Again, maybe it's just too crowded.
Yeah, he missed a good amount of time this season, was pretty much unavailable because he had I believe it was either a broken hand or broken finger, but he had a club on. I remember even going to a couple practices midway through conference play, and he's out there with a club on trying to catch balls, run routes, things like that. And I even mentioned it to someone, how the hell are you a wide receiver with a club trying to catch it? So that definitely hindered his chance to get on the field this year. But like you said, just with some of these veterans coming back next year, and obviously with Copeland coming back, I think a guy like Nick DeGennaro, there's maybe one or two more that maybe the path to playing time next year isn't as likely. And, you saw a guy like Ty Felton really taking some of those smaller reps that possibly Nick DeGennaro could have taken. But I do think it's kind of interesting because even coming out of high school, the buzz about him with the Maryland staff was that they really liked him. They thought he was very underrated given his speed out of the slot. So I think you definitely have speed guys like, maybe Marcus Fleming in the room. But he'll be able to find a spot where he can definitely shine.
Absolutely. It's like you said, hurtful. He's got 4 years eligibility, so he'll sign on somewhere and he'll end up being an impact player wherever he goes. He's got a lot of grit, got a lot of determination. The work ethic behind him is unquestioned. So I think he'll be successful. I think one of the names that was a little bit surprising to me that left, offensive lineman Evan Gregory. I didn't hear any rumblings about him potentially leaving, and it hurts, obviously not having that depth there.
It's a lot of size.
We do have some pieces coming in, some freshmen. I don't know how many that are going to be ready to play and fill in that kind of depth right away. But that's a big piece to lose, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it was kind of interesting just because when you look at Evan Gregory when he was coming out of DeMatha, he was a mauler out of the WCAC. So you definitely expected him to come in and maybe after a season or two, definitely expected him to get into the 2 deep. And coming into this year, I thought he kind of had that opportunity to be similar to an Ellis McKinney, where he's that swing guy where he could fill in for a guard if there's an injury, or fill in at center in a pinch. So I thought that he kind of had that opportunity to play this year. And obviously, you saw DJ Glaze playing both left and right tackle at times this year. You saw a little bit of Amelia Moran lining up at guard. So I think if he was going to crack the rotation, it was going to be this year. So I kind of mentioned on the site, a lot of people that I expected to leave were the guys that maybe the path to playing time wasn't as viable going into next year. And Gregory, like Ryan, you said, he's got plenty of size, local guy, never gets in trouble, great kid you want to have in your program, but just definitely have some other guys on the roster right now. So wish them the best of luck.
Yeah, a couple guys that we knew were on their way out. Just want to recap because we did get an update over the last couple of days as to where they're going. Guy we were kind of
shockers on both of them.
Well, yeah, shockers on where they're going. I know we were still holding on to a little hope with one of them. Brandon Jennings, linebacker, ends up leaving and going to Kansas State, which is a little bit of a shocker to me. Now, the other linebacker...
It was Indiana, which was the rumor.
Right. Yeah, to go with his brother. The other linebacker, Terrence Lewis. Now, I know he's from Florida, but there was a lot of rumors that he could potentially be going in Miami, which was heavily recruiting him when he was coming out of high school. Ends up going to the state of Florida, but ends up going to University of Central Florida. Were you surprised with Lewis going there?
I was surprised. I didn't think that he was going to go to a big time program, honestly. So I think that a guy like Terrence Lewis just has to find the right atmosphere, right mentality, and things need to click, and then it'll work. So I think a fresh start is definitely was something I was expecting, but not sure I was expecting UCF. So we'll definitely have an eye on where he lines up and ends up in the two deep going into next year.
Okay. Well, with the departures, there are arrivals, right? The transfer portal isn't just an out, it's also an in. We can add guys through this process. Obviously we talked about the class that's coming in of incoming freshmen, but we have gotten a couple of names that we've talked a little bit about on the show, but just to recap, we are getting linebacker Vendarius Cowan from West Virginia. This was a former top 100 and top 5 linebacker recruit. He had originally signed with Alabama. He had ties with Loxley then, was a local guy. Played a lot outside, though, when he went to West Virginia. He's more of an inside guy from what I've heard, though, right? Is that right, Ahmed?
Yeah, definitely projects as more of an inside guy. Usually, probably a Mike linebacker for Maryland.
Okay.
But yeah, he fits in that inside spot. And he mentioned, we did an interview with him, and he mentioned just that the role that he had at West Virginia just didn't fit him best. So getting out and after a lot of the defensive coaches left, just finding a spot where he fits into that defensive scheme mattered most. So a lot of familiarity there. Maryland needs inside linebackers, so just kind of a perfect match.
Then we got wide receiver Jacob Copeland, also came from Florida University. He was their leading receiver this year, so nothing doesn't hurt there to add to that loaded receiver core we should be bringing back.
Not at all. That's a pretty big piece. He left Florida because of lack of consistent targets. So I think it'll be kind of interesting to watch next year. We're not sure how many games Demas ends up playing as he comes back from injury, but have a guy like Deshaun Jones. So I do think that'll be interesting to watch. But
not to mention Rakim Jarrett.
He has the talent to definitely elevate the room. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited for the wide receiver core. And I'll be honest with you, from what I saw from Dante Demas on the sideline in the Pinstripe Bowl, I didn't see any crutches. I didn't see any braces. So I don't know. I'm kind of hopeful. I think Dante Demas comes back sooner than expected, but we'll see. I mean, I'm not putting my chickens before they hatch, but we'll see what happens with him. Getting a piece like Copeland to be able to come in and make an impact right away, I think is big for this wide receiver core. But those are the only two officially that have come in. Any names that Locks & Co. are keeping an eye on that might excite some Terp fans?
Yeah, right now I think obviously Caleb Williams he entered the transfer portal on Monday.
You went there, I didn't. I was gonna wait and see if you did.
I was just setting the stage, but yeah, I mean he definitely. I think the expectation was the transfer portal is going to ramp up next week, but I think with Caleb Williams entering yesterday, I think you're going to start seeing some domino effects. Mario Williams is a guy that transferred out of Oklahoma, and Oklahoma already added Dylan Gabriel, who's a quarterback there, so there could potentially be some domino impact coming out of Norman. Wide receiver Jalil Farouk is going to be the biggest name.
Yeah.
Not sure that I see Aaron Parks, Anton Harrison. Both of them are tackles for the Sooners. I'm not sure I see them entering the transfer portal. I posted a couple of defensive names for Inside the Black and Gold subscribers to watch on the defensive side of the ball, and then cornerback and quarterback are going to be the two biggest needs. And quarterback, I don't really see too many concrete developments as of now that could very much change. Expected to change possibly by the end of the week, if not by early next week. But right now, the standing pat, there's not a huge need and feeling that they need to rush and secure portal commitments right now. So just scouring the market, definitely some pre-existing relationships that Maryland's just, going back on things like that. But so far, so far so good.
Are we even allowed to take commitments right now since we're still over the roster limit? Like we haven't had enough people leave? Yeah, they can,
because I mean, there's the staff still has a pretty good idea of some guys that could potentially be leaving. I mean, there are guys, like Ja'Cory Bennett, Nick Cross, like those are guys that they could leave. So if they do leave, that could obviously change things. So Loxley and Co, they have their contingency plans. Guys, if they leave, here are three names that we want at safety or corner, things like that. So, you can definitely reach out, just set the expectation on both sides, and then kind of go from there.
So you've mentioned Nick Cross and Jordan Bennett multiple times, but I haven't heard you say Mosley. Should I just get off my pedestal and he's not coming back? I should start mourning already?
No, I think Jordan Mosley, I've actually predicted, I think that he's going to end up coming back. He's just a super quiet guy. I think he will, and I think Jordan Mosley is probably the most likely between him and Nick Cross to return. And I think that'll be a big piece because I'm really comfortable and I really like the tandem of Bo Braid and Dante Schrader back there. But just to have a guy with a little bit more experience on the back end would definitely help. So we'll see. I mean, it kind of all this stuff pretty much changes. feels like changes daily. But as of now, I definitely expected Jordan Mosley back next year.
Sorry, John Googs out here. Imagine Caleb with Demas and Copeland, Jarrett and Jones. Let's imagine Leah with these boys. It's gonna be great either way. Yeah, my God, Caleb Williams looks like Superman out there. He was everything we thought he was going to be. Yeah. So sure, but come on, it's going to be great either way. Let's not hold on to start preaching out there and get Leah mad and have him leave.
That's what I was going to say. Loxley has worked so hard at building his reputation up here and building the just the image of the program, what it's going to be. He's been very loyal to his guys. Leah is obviously one of his guys. As great as Caleb would be, I just don't think that that's anywhere near a reality for Maryland.
There's so much money out there for
beyond the money. I was going to say the money is a whole other factor. So that's a pipe dream. A pipe dream.
Yeah, and then the NIL stuff is just really just changed the whole dynamic, whole outlook of college football. But I have no doubt that Loxley and the staff are going to reach out and talk to the people in Caleb Williams' camp. That's just there's no way that you're not going to just monitor. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of those guys are local, they're friends, things like that. So even when you're checking on other guys, there's going to be overlap. But like you said, we got to remember that Caleb Williams pretty much told Maryland no, and then Talia came to Maryland, and that all happened. So the Leah stuff was kind of all happening well before he transferred to Maryland behind the scenes. So I just think that with Leah here, I just don't see Caleb being realistic with Maryland.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
This NIL stuff, man, we got to hope Port Covington does awfully well. Everybody get down there and volunteer your free time and play security guard, buy your Under Armour stocks, do what we can because we need a lot of help in this NIL race.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this shit is insane.
Absolutely. Well, some names that we know for sure are staying for one final ride. We mentioned Dante Demas. He's going to be coming back. We don't know when, but he is back. Two cogs on that offensive line, which
huge
makes me happy. I think makes Leah very happy. Jahari Branch announced that he's going to be returning. Also, Jalen Duncan, who I think had obviously the most pro prospect, a potential of leaving. He's returning. That's huge because this offensive line grew so much as a group. Obviously didn't have, knock on wood, didn't have any issues with injuries this year, so they got a lot of time to gel and work together. All that's going to do is improve for next year. I'm really happy to see these two guys coming back.
Yeah, I am shocked. I was shocked to see Jalen Duncan because he was definitely the guy that I was most expecting to declare for the NFL. Jahari, I thought there would be a chance, but thought that with him being able to start every single game through his 2 years at Maryland, he'd have a strong chance to get drafted at the next level. But I was talking about it with one contact. Just when you think back and look at the strength and the talent returning, the experience on both sides of the ball, it's really impressive. And I'm not sure Maryland's had an offensive defensive line like this probably in 10, 15 years. But when you think about just taking that next step, I mean, Maryland even went from allowing 4 sacks to 3 sacks a game from 2020 to 2021. So then when you add a guy like obviously Jalen Duncan locking down the blind side again, have DJ Glaze coming back, and then Jahari Branch with all that experience, working with Eric Harris all off season. That's a two huge pieces for offensive line coach Brian Braswell.
I can't remember the last time we had a whole line come back together. I can't. I'm sure it's happened at some point, but I don't remember it.
Yeah, it's true. Now, on the other side of the line, on the defensive side, a name that I was happy to see come back, a guy that, if you look at the stat board, nothing's going to wow you about the stat board, but he was a key cog in the middle of this defensive line. Year. But he played through so many of those injuries and still showed up, and was a very important piece. Ami Finau is returning, 40 tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble. Again, not a whole lot of stats to wow you, but his impact on that defensive line can't go measured.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. And like Ryan said, I mean, he was really hurt all year, him and Mokite, and played through it week in, week out. It's a lot of practice time so they could rehab from those injuries. But it's just a really big piece. And I think, like you said, you watch the film, and it shows you different perspective on Ami than the stats would show. So I think, again, it's a really big piece. And then I looked back to a couple weeks ago when Loxley mentioned, I think it was when he was asked about Dante Demas, he referenced Sam O's development from 2020 to 2021 as reason why a lot of these seniors who have an opportunity to return will end up returning, because some of these guys who might be fringe NFL prospects, they have a chance to come back, solidify their stock, and then definitely either go from undrafted to third round or day three to day two. So definitely a big piece. And like I said, just with that returning talent along the defensive line, we'll always be appreciating College Park.
Absolutely. And like I said before, and I've said many times, it starts and it ends with trench play. Like, you can have all the skill players you want on the offensive side of the ball, but if you don't have time to get rid of the ball, you don't have time to make those reads. Leah is not as successful as he was this year. So again, having the continuity on the offensive line and defensive line is huge for this team. It's an exciting time to be a Terps fan, football squad fan. Maybe the tide is switching. Maybe we're a football school now, Ryan,
We're
and
a
not a
football
basketball
school,
school. Maybe that's actually happening. We'll see.
I thought it was a hell of a bowl game, man. For being a 6-6 squad, that trophy was amazing looking.
Yeah.
The experience the players got to have looked absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah.
With you look at the trophy up there above Scott's head.
Right.
Just unbelievable. Our experience was great. We went up to Caroline's on Broadway and saw Dave Attell. Can you think about a more New York thing to do than to see Dave Attell at the comedy club? We had an absolute blast up there, man.
Yeah, I couldn't have asked for a better opportunity to go up to New York. It's right, it's a 3-hour drive up the road, or bus ride up the road if you don't want to drive around there. Had a great time. Like you said, I think the kids just were super excited. A lot of these kids had never played in a bowl game before. Actually, none of them, I don't think, had ever played in a bowl game before. And that came across, in the game itself and their performance. But then after the game, the celebration, man, the excitement.
I got a signature
of those
from
kids.
Anthony Pecorella. He's shaking like a leaf.
Ryan went into full fanboy mode to get the signature and everything. It was cool.
He was the only guest we had that I had no signature from. So I grabbed it.
Would have liked to see you down on the field. I didn't know if you ever even got a chance to get out of the press box. Did you get down on the field or what?
I did not. I was pretty much in press box the whole time, and we had the press box is actually outdoors. So every 10, 15 minutes, I was pretty much going in the back room, and I think at halftime I was transcribing back there. But the Yankees, shout out to the Yankees. I never thought I'd see that word, because they had a full-on buffet. I mean, we're talking like stewed beef. We're talking stuffed shells. It was like an absolute. You could have anything you want. They had burgers, hot dogs, everything.
That's awesome.
It was pretty wild. But yeah, it was pretty much press box, and then just did press conference, and then I unfortunately had my bus at 8:15, so I was right on out of there.
Oh, I have to send you a picture, because speaking of buffets, Ryan and I also had a buffet experience. We literally got a bucket of chicken tenders and a pound of French fries.
5 pounds.
We each got one.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it was insane.
I split mine with my father, but Fred housed his.
Yeah, I have never seen something like that on a menu. I'm the guy that's like, they've got this ridiculous burger on a menu that nobody in their world is going to eat. I gotta order it just to see it on a plate. That's how this bucket was.
It was literally
you're the guy that does the 72-ounce steak challenge.
100%. Yeah. If there's a way I can get my picture on the wall for eating a 72-ounce steak, I'm doing it. That's just me. You don't get this big by eating a 3-ounce steak. No.
Big Texan, by the way. That's a restaurant. Go there.
All right, but we did mention.
Go ahead. I'm going to need to see that picture.
I will. I'll send it over to you. But we did mention basketball, so we got to talk a little bit about that. We'll be quick on this, as they did end up playing their first road game last night against Iowa in the Big Ten. Didn't go well. They ended up losing 80-75. It wasn't all bad. They're now 8-5 on the year, 0-2 in the Big Ten.
We're a football school.
It was a pretty good game until the end. They cut the lead down to 2 with 10 seconds left, but they just, Iowa's made their free throws, so they couldn't get over the hump. What I liked about this, I don't know if you got a chance to watch this game or not, but what I liked about this game were the adjustments that Danny Manning made in this game, especially defensively. I mean, they switched from a 3-2 to a 2-3 zone, half-court press, man-to-man. I love the in-game adjustments. This is something that we didn't see a whole lot of during the Turge era. So I personally like that. I don't know what your take is on it.
Yeah, exactly that. I thought just coming out of that under 12 timeout, I think at that point it was 24-15 or 24-12. But really, just from then on, it was just a complete different ball game. I think that was the first time this year that I saw Maryland become a good defensive team against. Yeah, I mean, we got to remember Iowa was the number two scoring team in the country,
Right.
and then Keegan Murray was the NCAA's leading scorer. And obviously, Maryland didn't do enough to stop Keegan Murray.
No.
But to limit Iowa like that, I think when Maryland was coming back, Iowa was shooting 1 of 7, 3 of their last 10, 2 of their last 12. I mean, it was just there were definitely just consistent stretches throughout the game where Iowa's half-court offense was just out of rhythm. So I think just seeing that out of Maryland, obviously, and despite the losing effort, I thought that was the biggest point of optimism moving forward.
Yeah, to your point, Keegan Murray, I mean, this is a guy that's given everybody fits. I mean, he's a high NBA draft prospect. I think he's a lottery pick. He's the real deal. I think he scored 35 and 8 in this game. I mean, he had a huge game. So, like I said, Terps, you know, I don't know what to think of this year. I'm not holding on to tournament hopes or anything. I just want to see improvement from this squad. I want to see if they are going to end up keeping Danny Manning, that he can do the things that we want him to do. We want to see that he can make these types of adjustments. All the things that we kind of harped on Turgeon for not being able to do, he needs to be able to do those things. And in this game specifically, it looked good to me. James got a comment. Go ahead, James.
Just real quick. Danny Manning is just a Band-Aid right now.
I think he is.
And the reason why he had his shot at Wake Forest and he didn't do anything down there. He's not going to do anything for the Terps. He's just a fill-in right now. I was a little disappointed that in this game they didn't go into the inside to the centers. What's his face? Mahab. He was 5 for 6, and just keep on feeding him.
The turnovers were a problem, as John Goog said. He kept putting the ball down on below his waist. He's 7 foot tall. He ends up being 3 foot tall.
Just catch the ball high and keep the ball above everybody. It's like you look like a child, but just put it away.
He was putting some points in. You got to keep doing it, but he seems to be more coachable because there's no way they're not telling him this in every film study.
Danny Manning's another big guy. He should be working with him. You know,
and I'm sure he is. What's your take on everything, Ahmed?
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of agree with you. I thought kind of coming into this year, I thought maybe Kudus was a little bit more athletic. I mean, he just looked very stiff at times, and I think he's kind of struggled through this first half of the year, really against these athletic big men, and that's why Julian Reese has been able to play so much. But these last 2 games, he's kind of been running into some foul trouble that's limited him a little bit. But I agree. But I did notice that I believe it was the last 6 field goals, or the last 3 field goals for Maryland, 6 points, did come in the paint, and I do think that Maryland did. Tried to emphasize those paint touches. I know that's been something that Danny Manning has kind of emphasized since he's taken over. Get to the paint, get to the free throw line. So I do think that Maryland started to do that a little bit better. But I've expected a little bit more out of Kudus than I've seen so far. But think he flashed a little bit, but you need a little bit more consistency inside.
Right. Well, it doesn't get any easier. Thursday they go on the road, stay on the road. They go into Illinois, and we know the challenges that Illinois presents to this team. So we'll see what happens, man. Again, I just want to see improvement week in and week out, and let the chips kind of fall where they may at the end of the year. But before we let you go, I wanted to get your take on this, because we had talked about Jalen Sticks and his NBA career thus far, and the Suns kind of potentially giving up on him and not picking up his 3rd-year option and all that stuff. Well, he has been playing, I don't know if you've been paying attention, but in the NBA these last couple of games, he has been playing like a man possessed. Last 4 games, 16 points per game, 10.5 rebounds a game, 1.3 blocks per game. He is everything that he was here as a junior player when he was playing with Bruno. What's the change for Sticks? Is it just that it's clicking, you think?
Yeah, and I think a guy like him, and that's kind of maybe what Maryland fans realized when he was drafted 10th overall, is that may have been a little bit high, and I think that kind of sets the maybe unrealistic expectations, because when you look at a guy like Sticks, even if you look at his freshman-sophomore transformation, he was able to take that step. So when you look at Smith, obviously this year, the NBA is being ravaged with the COVID absences, things like that. So a guy like Smith, a guy like Aaron Wiggins, it's a chance for them to really step up and take advantage of the opportunity. And, Jalen Smith did exactly that. definitely rewatched the video maybe 100 times of him dunking on the Plumlee.
Yeah.
We'll always love some Duke anti-Duke content.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think Jalen, I think he's doing a good job of showcasing himself for next season. Obviously, the Suns have already made the decision. Now they can go back and decide to pick up that team option. I know there's a deadline. I don't know what that date is, but I do believe still have that opportunity to change their mind. But yeah, I mean, it's good for him. Obviously, in year 3, you want to see a guy like him take that next step. So
right.
He's now a year or 2 away from getting that first contract. So
yep.
We shall see. So, but definitely good to see out of Jalen.
I'd really like to see not only that dunk, but also when the guy tried to posterize him and he put up that huge block right at the rim. I mean, both sides of the court doing that. Not to mention Aaron Wiggins also playing really well in the NBA. It's been a good month for Terps in the NBA for sure.
It has for sure. It has. Ahmed, man, appreciate you taking the time to join us here tonight on the BirdlandBS show. It's a little different, but I think it worked out good, man. And we'll get together over the next couple of weeks and put together another podcast for sure.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys having me. Fun segment. So appreciate it.
All right, man. We'll talk soon. I'll send you that picture here in a minute.
All right. Sounds good. Y'all take care.
All right, man. You too.
Well, guys, I hope you really enjoyed our first live option with the 3 amigos, Fred, Ahmed, Ryan, on BirdlandBS live show Tuesdays, 7:30 p.m. I'm sure we'll be doing this again in the future, having Ahmed call in. It's kind of nice knocking out 2 birds with 1 stone. We usually record BirdlandBS and then come bring Do Shell and Tell later in the week. The next segment I'm going to bring you guys is from our After Hours. After Hours gets a little bit more risque. It's the very end of our show. It's late at night. You know, we've been hanging out, and it's more of a casual conversation. So I will warn, the language gets a little colorful. If 4-letter words don't work out for you, this might be the end of your experience. But some really fun stories about our trip to New York City and all the things that went on there, as well as just some interesting, just normal college football takes that came up later in the show. So I thought you guys might enjoy it, as long as your ears can handle the language. Do apologize. I think we got a little bit excited talking about vacation this time around. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you stick around, and I hope you keep following Shell and Tell. Give us likes, reviews, follows, anything you can do would really be appreciated. The reviews, especially on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, that kind of thing, really helps us get the word out. It's super cool meeting fans in New York City that knew about the show. Met a couple fans that actually said they came over with Ahmed. Thank you, Ahmed, for expanding our brand to a whole new group of Maryland fans, really getting the word out here. So I hope you guys enjoy the After Hours segment from BirdlandBS. You can find them everywhere, Facebook, YouTube, anywhere you can do live streams. Tuesdays, 7:30 p.m., and all of their old shows are up as well. It's kind of like the Sports Center of Baltimore. Enjoy.
What are your thoughts on the whole thing of the players opting out of bowl games? Do you have a problem with it? Being such a college football fan, do you have a problem with it? Do you agree with Kirk? Do you disagree? Where do you stand?
I get it for the most part. Like the Olave, the receiver for Ohio State that opted out of the Rose Bowl. Like it all is player dependent, because like if Maryland got to the Rose Bowl next year, if anyone opted out, I would have a problem with it because of the step up, like the opportunity to do this in that arena. But for Olave, it was a step down. He already played in a national championship Final Four, tournament. He already played in these so the Rose Bowl was not his biggest, best game ever. It was not even for most of the people on the team. And most likely any of the players that it was their biggest bowl ever will probably go to a bigger bowl in the next 3 years there at Ohio State. So it's really player and team dependent for me. I know it sounds like a homer that I'd be mad for a Maryland player there, but if Maryland was playing in national championships and then we went to the Rose Bowl, I'd be totally fine with them skipping the Rose Bowl.
That's exactly right. It's a
very
different
layer.
Yeah. To your point, like you said, if somebody from Alabama all of a sudden wasn't in a national championship game, but they were in still a prestigious bowl, if half the team wanted to sit out because half the team's going to the NFL, I would completely understand that because they've been in the national championship every year.
If they're in a New Year's Six bowl, just imagine if Alabama actually misses a playoff finally, and the New Year's Six, they're even playing a New Year's Six bowl.
Right.
They're still probably going to have every first-round draft pick sit out, because to them, their season was a complete failure.
Right.
Because Alabama, it's national championship winner or
bust.
bust.
Or bust.
Like they lose the national championship and they're disappointed in their year.
Right.
Like the level of stress. I don't want Maryland anywhere near that. That sounds terrible. Brittany, our friend that's an Alabama fan, I don't know how you live that way. There's never any like surpassing your expectations.
What
I'm
are they gonna do when
perfectly
Saban
happy
leaves?
getting 8 to 10 wins forever as Maryland and being happy getting, where you end up better or worse. Like that's a better life for me than it is to be, we have to win everything. Like the first loss of the year is devastating.
Right.
That sounds terrible.
James, what's your take on it?
I don't know. Maybe because I'm just old school and just so old, but I wish they would just go back to the main
Distinguished.
like four bowls where it was like the Outback Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl, like those
Orange
games.
Bowl, Rose Bowl.
Yeah, I get.
So you don't like the playoffs? What you're saying?
No, because like you said, like if you're not in it, I wouldn't play it. But just for those four, it was watch it like perfect example. Willis McGahee, he got hurt in that game.
Yeah, blew out
But
his knee.
He had insurance, so it was like if he couldn't recover, whatever, he still got drafted. The Bills did a great job by like taking a whole year off. They didn't rush him at all. Just let him do his own thing. Just to get the opportunity to do that is got to be like phenomenal. If you get hurt or whatever, it's like, you know what? I get a real job. Like all these so-called Heisman Trophy winner like Danny Wolf or all that, they try the NFL, they don't succeed. They get like a real fucking like real job, like a insurance or something that they got their degree in. So I get it, but the younger people, they're like, I can see what I can rob. It's like what you said. Joe Flacco got hot at the right time, got paid. That guy was hot in college. He's going to get paid. I get it. I'm old school. I really like the 5 major bowl games and just watch. It was like I felt like all of them were championship games compared to now. It's like, it's just Alabama, whoever they're going to play.
So are you also really old school that they should play all 4 years in college?
No, I give them like at least 3, like they have it. Like if you earned it.
Right.
I can't stand the one and done.
All right.
It's
Basketball, I hate it.
If that's the case, just like.
Just draft out.
It's kind of hard for a football player to get drafted out of high school and just like wait or whatever. But doing a
They're
one
not
and done,
men yet.
yeah, but doing one and done and for football, you're going to get fucking killed in the NFL. So
Absolutely. I can't agree with you more. I did like it back in the day when it was bowl games, but I understand why they went to the playoff format because it did get to this whole like this just unreasonable debate of who was the actual national championship.
I get it, but I enjoyed it because it left you wondering.
It could come from any bowl game.
Yeah.
Right. I agree.
Compared to now, like, you get your bowl game, it is what it is, it's done with, it's just like now we're going to see Alabama play Georgia again. Like, I really don't want to see it.
Yeah, I'll be interesting to see what the ratings
I
will
will
be
say
for that.
to James's point, there are so many bowls that it kind of it does
They got too
dilute it a
many.
little bit. And
I'd be
look,
okay with a 7-5 being the bowl game. I would.
I'll tell you
so
what,
here's
for
what
a team that was what were we 6 and 6 to go to the Pinstripe Bowl and the experience that we had there at that
was
bowl,
amazing.
it was great.
And I agree with you, but and you guys could speak better to this because you were there, all 3 of you. From the TV perspective, it was empty.
There was 30,000 people. It's a 55,000 capacity stadium.
There were 30,000 people there.
29 something.
That was the announced attendance was 29.6. I think that maybe that number's a little
Scott,
high as always.
Scott,
It
but
has
there
to
was
be.
a
There was
lot of
25
people.
there.
Tickets were still available.
Well, yeah, of course, the
Well, yeah,
55,000.
it was a 55,000
stadium.
My whole point was like the pictures that you guys sent, right? And then seeing it on TV, watching everything happening. You guys your section was in and out of camera. Anytime the ball went up, it was kicked.
Yeah.
You guys were.
Well, I
there
will
were
say-
a lot of fucking empty seats around you. I'm just saying.
I will say Virginia Tech did beat us in the number
Okay.
of people there. It
the
was so
only place
weird.
I saw a
Ryan lost
concentrated
that
amount of
debate.
people
It
was
was
the kid, was
so
the student
It
section.
was so strange because we didn't see Virginia Tech people fucking anywhere for the
Yeah.
whole. We were there for 36 hours before the game. We didn't see people on the subways. We didn't see people in Times Square. We didn't see people
Just at the comedy
anywhere.
club.
We even circled. We even circled the stadium
after
before
the
the game
game.
with people in lines, and the lines looked like 70% Maryland fans. And I'm going, holy shit, we're gonna dominate this number. We're gonna do great. And then we got in there, and they just filled in and filled in and filled in. And they were loud too. They had their Enter Sandman.
Yeah.
They were real happy for about the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, I don't
And
even
then
think
we
it was 5 minutes.
We shut them the fuck up pretty quick after that.
I don't know if it was one of us, but someone said like Maryland needs to get their marching band a little bit bigger compared to.
Well, let me tell you, I'll hurt
Ryan.
I'll cuddle Maryland, not the marching band. I was sitting next to a couple marching band parents. Had some good conversations with them. And
he finds friends wherever he goes.
I had guys to my right. I was talking to the entire game too.
Maryland did their marching band dirty, bro. They made them all get tested before being able to bus up there, and did not do the testing for them. They had to get testing within 48 hours before the bus left, and they did not provide it, which is nuts when you are the University of Maryland with 1 billion hospital systems in yourself. So there were a bunch of people that opted out just because they were scared of COVID and didn't want to go. There were a bunch of people that couldn't get tested because you're talking about, like, they basically had to do it on Monday in order to get it done because you couldn't get tested on Sunday.
I was going to say, if you didn't find out till Friday or Saturday.
Anyone that's been trying to get a COVID test around here nowadays knows that there's, like, wait lists and, like, difficulty getting anywhere.
Well, apparently you get one at every corner in New York.
Yeah, so every corner in New York.
Every corner in New York. The first line that we experienced in New York was a COVID line.
We're walking down the street, look like we're having a great time. Everything's going awesome. We had started way up or way outside like the normal central areas, and so we've been walking forever. Hadn't seen anything. We saw this long line and meet in front, like, oh, I wonder what that is. Oh, that looks interesting.
Let's go stand
and
in
we
it.
started walking by, and then we get to the front there. It's like the COVID tent, and I'm like, oh shit, walk away.
Other side. And that's how it was. The closer you got to the city, where they're fucking doing all of the lights and all of the shows and all that's literally right by the fucking tree is a COVID tent.
They also that's what I was telling you guys.
COVID tent. It was nuts.
That's what I was telling you guys before you went up was take everything with you, because they had right before you guys were leaving, they had announced that all public and private sectors.
Not everybody was checking them. we got, I'd say 50%. 50% of places
but
checked
still,
them.
if you would have been limited on what you could have done.
we did take it.
Scott, picture this. Intersection. COVID, weed truck, hot nuts, and fake Gucci and Louis Vuitton.
Every intersection.
Every corner.
Every time I saw a food crowd, hot nuts. And Ryan kept
I
talking.
fucking love hot nuts.
And the weed everywhere. You're smelling it. I had contact fucking walking through there, dude.
Oh my God, yeah.
Jesus.
But either way, still had a great time. The 2 comedy clubs that we went to, shout out to Caroline's on Broadway, shout out to, what was it, Gotham, both places, all the comedians. We saw 8 comedians in total. All of them were great.
I will tell you,
mind-blowing.
Well, Caroline's is like the premiere, and then amateur hour is Gotham, but they were all
they
really
were very good. New York City amateur hour is everyone else's pros.
Yeah,
Right.
well, like I told him, you get a lot of the comics that came out of especially the East Coast, New York. So one of the big ones, Maryland guy, Louis Black. Louis Black, when he first got going, he started at Gotham, got noticed by the people from Caroline, started performing at Caroline.
So wait a minute, Louis Black's from Maryland?
Yes, he's from Silver Spring.
My favorite comedian ever. I didn't know he was from Maryland. The Maryland guy is disappointed right now. I'm so embarrassed for my stadium. I'm sorry, guys.
You got that murder on your shirt.
I knew. I just knew in my head that he was from Maryland. That's why I loved him so much.
He was born and raised in Silver Spring, Maryland.
My favorite living comic. Mitch Hedberg's my favorort ever.
R.I.P. Mitch.
I didn't know where you're going with that. But no, yeah. Like,
walked into Target, but I
Gotham.
There's people splattered all around the outside.
Take note of the people that you listen to. And if you thought that they were good, take
Is
note.
Mitch Hedberg from Maryland?
No. I think he's from New York. But no, take note of the guys you guys did see at Gotham, because usually, when you get people out of there at Gotham, you have to be somebody along the East Coast to start performing at Gotham to get to. That's where like you get noticed at Gotham, you start performing at Gotham, and then you get noticed.
I like to think I'm a pretty good judge of talent. None of them are gonna go like anywhere big.
By the way, the best
Carolines are
the best.
Carolines, yeah. I'm talking about Gotham.
The best meme I saw all week. I don't know if either of you have seen, but both of you will 100% appreciate. It was AB trying out for his new job.
What's
when he takes his shirt off, and it was a picture of him next to Bert Kreischer.
Oh God.
Party animals.
I would pay to go see that, though. I would watch that tour. And shout out to New York Pizza Suprema, best pizza in New York. We went there 3 times to authenticate it. It was great.
You didn't go anywhere else to try anywhere else. You just went there 3 times.
It was too good. There was no reason. There was no reason to try anywhere else. It had the highest rating on Google for a goddamn reason.
Yeah, and it was like 3 miles from our hotel.
It was like 4.
And the cheesecake is amazing up there.
Yes.
I think
that's why they got
Dad
New York
had-
cheesecake for a reason.
My dad had like 4 pieces everywhere we went.
I had my first bagel with lox up there, and somebody tell me that you got to get a bagel while you're in New York.
Never had a bagel with lox?
No, I never had one, and I also never knew that bagels were a thing in New York. I never knew that they were like a big thing there. This girl I'm talking to was like, oh, yeah, you got to go up there. You got to get a bagel. You got to go to like a Jewish deli. I don't know how many blocks we walked looking for a goddamn Jewish deli. We couldn't find one.
Jewish deli on every corner
That's
in New York.
That's what she told me, and we couldn't find them anywhere.
Not in that borough.
We were in Chelsea, and they weren't anywhere. And then all of a sudden, one come out of fucking nowhere, and we went in there. We got our with schmear and lox on it. It was great.
Wait a second.
Lox for lox.
Hold on. Did the two of you not just ask a New Yorker?
No, that's where she's from is New York. That's why I asked. She said,
But I'm saying
in
you
the
didn't see
area I'm
somebody
going,
walking down the street with a New York Yankees hat on going, hey, what's the best deli around here?
No, we were looking at Ryan's phone. Ryan was trying to navigate through and find something.
Ryan did a hell of a job.
Yeah, he did.
It was
All
fun
right,
again.
fair enough.
We were the M for murder thing, man, was so funny as hell. But the guy was telling a joke about how he pulled a hammer in a fight. My dad's front row of the stage, laughing his ass off like he was ahead of the joke. Like he knew how this joke was ending because he's old school farm boy. He's pulled a pipe once or twice, I think, in his life. So he had just a big M on his shirt, like this. And he's like, I knew it. I knew you was that guy. That M stands for murder. It was so funny.
It was pretty funny. The setup. We went the one night and it was the 4 of us sitting at a table, and then right next to us was this table of 4 models. They were all like relatives. It was the mother and 3 daughters.
Blonde,
all of them
6'5".
all of them like 5'11", 6 foot, 110 pounds, right?
What I hear is you had no shot.
No, it wasn't that.
The next table was all Virginia Tech fans.
Right. So this
Still
guy
in jerseys.
So
Cosmo.
the main host guy that introduces everybody, and he also does his own joke line. Well, he's one of those guys that involves the audience and starts to pick. So he's calling us out. He's like, I'm not talking to these guys. That's a fucking lumberjack table. I'm not messing with them. Next to these fucking models, he's like, I don't know what kind of fucking shit we got going on here. We got the Brady Bunch. It was just funny, man.
No, but funny. We had like the DMV, right?
Yeah, right.
Virginia,
They were from DC.
They were from models
That's
from
right.
DC. Yeah, it was going back and forth. They were like,
So wait, you have you guys from Maryland, the models in D.C., and
the Virginia Tech fans.
and
you couldn't
Virginia
play that out any better.
And the Virginia Tech were drunk assholes interrupting the show over and over again. So
got called out.
So every comedian ended up like, "Fuck these Virginia Tech guys. I'm glad Maryland beat your ass today." Like, it was like they said you played today, right? To the Virginia Tech people, and he's like, "Yeah."
And when Ryan
did you
goes,
win?
Well, for
And
like
I
5 minutes they played.
I said they played for like 5 minutes, and then
Then
later
they're
they
like,
was like,
"Fuck you."
"Did you win?" I said, "Not even fucking close."
And then Scott, this one guy looked like Garth from Wayne's World, drinking a fucking Cosmo. Fucking Cosmo.
A fat Garth.
Man, it was a great time. I'm looking forward to many more bowl games in the future. Hopefully one next year. Hopefully it's not in Detroit. Hopefully it's somewhere nice. We'll see where it is, but appreciate you guys tuning in as always. We'll see you next Tuesday night, 7:30 as usual.
See you guys.
See you guys.